Alright, welcome back to the channel. If you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. I've got the M1 Garand out tonight. I'm going to show something that I learned recently. Mine is the Springfield 1 million serial number range, which puts the date of manufacture around the summer of 1943. The wood components are exactly what the CMP sent me and are very much showing their age. With the almost matching color of the stock and forend, I definitely feel like the barrel shield was replaced when it went through Arsenal in October of 1964. I know this because the wall of the magazine well is etched with that date. I ordered a small bottle of refined linseed oil from Amazon for $7 or $8. I haven't tried it personally, but the armchair gunsmiths in the Garand forums caution against using furniture polish on wood. A slick feel. Obviously, shooting a high-power semi-automatic rifle, this should be avoided. Rather than just slathering the oil on, I decided to break down the rifle and apply it to the parts individually. I very seriously doubt this type of oil would be hazardous or detrimental to the metal surfaces, but I wanted to make sure that I could focus on the wood as precisely as possible. From the advice of an individual in the woodworking business, linseed oil is normally applied in coats to raw wood and then buffed with a dry cloth. Since this wood is heavily used and cut from a tree 80 years ago, I'm not expecting a perfect outcome here. All I did was take a generous amount of oil to the rag and apply the coat, starting with the forend. I'm not going to soak the whole thing, like I did with my 1911. In that video series, I disassembled the whole pistol and let it sit in oil for some time. There are several unique features on mine. The most obvious is the well-aged piece of masking tape with buttstock number 183. It is operating procedure in the military to number each weapon for assignment and accountability. There's a cartouche of a letter P inside of a circle stamped on the grip, which an uneducated guess tells me it's an inspection stamp. My crack research staff has not told me what this actually means. The left side of the stock features SA inside a square. This to me is Springfield Armory, makes me suspect that this may be the original stock that came with the firearm. I can't imagine that after the re-arsenal in 1964, if Springfield replaced this, the wood would look this terrible. For this section, I apply a generous amount of oil and wipe it all over, including inside the magazine well and where the trigger group sits. One note about the tape marked 183. It isn't unusual for an armorer to use tape. Nowadays, it's mainly label makers, dog tags, or paint markers. One thing that is puzzling, however, is what armory would need to number 183 plus weapons. A standard company of troops usually doesn't exceed 150 or 160 troops, even with a detachment. I can only guess that this group of weapons that once belonged to maybe was accounted for by battalion. So the whole battalion's weapons were assigned 1 through 500 or 600 or whatever in different locations. It seems kind of odd to me. So for example, A company would have rifles 1 through 100. B company's vault would contain rifles 101 through 200, and so on. If anyone has anything knowledgeable about this, please drop me a comment below. The oil does give the wood a nice shine. In the use of linseed oil and my brief experience with it, it does look really good when this stuff is applied and buffed into a freshly sanded piece of wood. If you bought a new stock to replace the one you had, I think that linseed oil would be an excellent treatment for it. As for mine, with the age stamps and the tape on the stock, I feel like those add some history and character to the weapon. With my belief that the main stock may be original to the piece, I don't have any plans to replace it with a new one. I let the oil stay in place for 30 minutes and then took an old microfiber towel and rubbed it in similar to waxing a car. I didn't notice any slick or greasy spots after buffing. The parts that have been oiled show no risk of decreased grip. One thing I didn't mention up front, it's really common sense but worth noting. When I applied this and did this process, I made sure to do so over some old cloths so I wouldn't make a mess with the oil everywhere, just as you would if you were cleaning the rifle after a trip to the range. So here is an example of linseed oil in action on a raw piece of wood. This is Sidekicks rubber band gun. So the front of it, I don't know, I guess this is cedar. It doesn't smell like it. Maybe if you shaved off a piece or cut into it, maybe you could smell it. I don't know. I'm not a carpenter or woodworking expert by any means, but I will say that the linseed oil, I did the same procedure on this as I did with the Garand. I applied it, a very heavy coat, kind of massaged it in with that rag, and then I used the terry cloth, as a matter of fact the same rags, and buffed it in the best I could. And it really didn't. This wood is a raw piece of wood. You can see up here, very unrefined. It took the oil in, soaked it up like a sponge. So I guess this is what it's supposed to look like when you actually use it for its intended purpose. But with the Garand stock as dark as it is, it just didn't turn out that way. A quick reassembly is in order, and the rifle goes back into storage. These last two clips are 3 days after. The stock really doesn't look any different. The shine pretty much looks the way it did before, and I wouldn't call this process a restoration, as much just a preservation and cleaning. Again, after 3 days, no risk of slick spots or fears of the rifle slipping out of your hands. Thanks for watching, thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in the next one.